Hello, everyone. My name is Uwais Asmal. Welcome to another episode of Two Ways to Skin a Cat, a show where we talk career experiences, entrepreneurship, and investments. The main aim is to show that there's more than one way to be successful other than just climbing the corporate ladder. We are live on LinkedIn and YouTube, and the show will be on podcast tomorrow morning. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. If you're joining us live, drop a 1 in the comments so that we know we're not talking to ourselves, and drop a 2 in the comments if you're watching the recording. My guest for this week is Yusuf Bodiat, Chartered Accountant and Chief Financial Officer at the Federated Employers Mutual Assurance Company, or FEM. He's also the 2021 SAICA Top 35 Under 35 Finalist and a non-executive director as well. Yusuf, thanks so much for joining me today.
And thank you for inviting me, Uwais.
Let's jump into questions. Maybe tell us your story, your background, where you come from, and even outside of work, who is Yusuf Bodiat? Give us the backstory.
Thank you. So as you said, I'm Yusuf. I'm a 35-year-old chartered accountant from Johannesburg, born and bred in Johannesburg. I am the Chief Financial Officer at FEM, medium-sized short-term insurer in the construction industry. So we specialize in workers' compensation to construction companies only, a very unique company, no others like us. We're also a mutual company, so our customers are our shareholders as well. I've been at FEM now for 3 years as the Chief Financial Officer. I also look after some of the other group entities, which includes an education foundation, which I've also been a part of for the past 3 years. And also more recently, I helped set up a special COVID-19 relief fund for construction companies. So it's been 3 years at FEM, really enjoying it, really learning a lot. Prior to FEM, I worked at another short-term insurer known as Lion of Africa Insurance, based in Johannesburg. I spent about 2 years there, the first year being its financial reporting manager, and the second year as its acting CFO. The company subsequently closed down, and that's why I left to join FEM in 2019. So that's been my life in industry for the past 5 years. Prior to that, I spent about 6 years at Deloitte in its Johannesburg office. I served articles at Deloitte in the Woodlands office, also went on secondment with Deloitte to the States, and then stayed on as an audit manager for, let's say, just under 3 years. So that's my career history. Studied at Wits University, spent a long 6 years at Wits, getting my BCom and BAc degree. Also, lots of good memories from that university, I must say. On a more personal perspective, been married for almost 7 years now. I have 2 lovely daughters, still small, ages 4 and 6. Working from home, as you can see, and also enjoying it quite a lot. And that's me in a nutshell, always.
In a nutshell, okay. And I mean, you said outside of the time that you spent in articles, you spent most of your career in the insurance industry. But articles didn't seem to be insurance related. So how did you move from financial services, I would assume, to the insurance industry? Because it doesn't seem like you did much insurance during articles.
Well, yes and no. So during my 3 years as an article clerk in the financial services team, I had a range of clients. So I had a few insurers, both short-term and long-term insurers. I also audited a bank, a small to medium-sized bank. I had parastatal clients, medical aids, pension funds. So I had a nice range of clients in the financial services industry, which included insurance and more specifically short-term insurance. When I then rejoined Deloitte after secondment as an audit manager, they then asked me to select which specific industry within financial services I wanted. And I guess I had a fair amount of experience in insurance. It was also at that time the industry where many managers weren't moving into. Many of the managers wanted the big banks. It was more of the cooler clients to get.
Sexy stuff.
So the sexy stuff. Going to the big banks in Sandton was something everybody wanted. But I felt that insurance was something I could learn a lot from. Also, there was a lot of scope for growth there. So I chose insurance. And as an audit manager, I think all of my clients, except for 2, were insurance clients over that 2 to 3 years that I spent there.
Okay, so you had a good background in insurance. What are the opportunities for chartered accountants specifically, and even like accountants in general in the insurance industry? Are there a lot of opportunities, or maybe talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there are a fair amount of opportunities as a chartered accountant, and it depends on the type of insurer and the size of an insurer. So, as an example, at FEM, if you were to join FEM as a newly qualified CA, you'd work in the finance team and eventually work your way up to financial manager and then CFO. So it's sort of a broad range of opportunities in a, let's say, small to medium sized company. And that would be the same in Lion of Africa, where I worked previously. I guess if you had to work in one of the larger insurers like a Sanlam or Old Mutual or a Discovery, that's where the possibilities are quite endless. I mean, I know I've got colleagues in those companies who, even although they are CAs, they do nothing related to accounting. I mean, they do things in business development and financial planning and analysis. So it's a lot broader, but that's because those companies are so big. There's a lot more opportunities. I guess also to an extent, in a smaller company, the opportunity for growth laterally is maybe a bit slim, but you can progress quite quickly higher up then.
Okay, I mean, that gives us a good idea. And let's, for the audience, if anybody's got any questions for Yusuf, please add them to the comment section now. We'll answer all the questions towards the end. Let's switch a little bit to SAICA Top 35 Under 35. Tell us about your experience there and whether you'd advise others to apply.
Yeah, so I guess to answer the second part, I'll definitely advise others to apply. Yeah, really interesting experience, if I can say the least. So I actually applied in 2020 and in 2021. 2020 was an odd year because it was the first year where we were all in lockdown. SAICA had to change the way the program was run. And I think for me, I spent a lot of time and effort putting together my submission to SAICA. So what you need to do is put I think a 2 to 5 minute video about yourself, selling yourself as part of that submission. And I put a lot of effort into that. I think maybe too much effort, where I suited up. I got a video taken of me at home with different camera angles and music in the background. And I guess for me, that was a good learning opportunity to see how I could have done things for that submission, but also how I shouldn't have done it. So I was quite disappointed when I didn't make it as a finalist in that 2020 set. But also, I guess it made me want to work differently or harder for the 2021. Where I guess in 2021, it was more authentic, more honest. I just literally sat on this chair, put the camera on and recorded my story for SAICA. And yeah, quite pleasing. There were over 600 or 700 applicants for the 2021 year. Winners were really superstars, I must say. The one thing I realized about being in the competition is that there's so much talent of CAs in the country at the moment. When you're standing there amongst the other 34, you think to yourself, why am I here? I mean, was there a mistake in the system? Why did I make it through? You have that imposter syndrome coming through, because if you look at the winner for 2021, he's the one of the co-founders of the Invigilator app. And I actually spoke to him at the judging day a few days before the event. And you think to yourself, wow, this guy's started his own company, and many other people have started their own companies. I'm just a CFO at a medium-term insurer. What am I doing here? But look, from a networking perspective, it's amazing. They make you work hard. After that initial submission, there's lots of other submissions we had to do behind the scenes, over weekends, late nights, submit pages and pages of portfolios of evidence. And even just the interview itself at SAICA. You're sitting in a room with, I think, 10 other judges. So 10 people looking at you. You're standing there all alone in the corner. You've got a few minutes only to say what you need to say. They put makeup on for you. So yeah, lots of pressure, but also a really good, I guess, opportunity to network and also get your name out there.
Sounds like good experience. So if anybody's considering apply, and if you don't get in, apply again next year. But yeah, I hear you on the imposter syndrome. I think it gets to all of us at some stage, and I think it's just anything looks interesting from the outside, but you also, as long as you're working hard and putting in the effort, you are also shining in your own way.
I think what's interesting about the SAICA competition also, if I look at 2021 specifically, of the 35 finalists, only 10, if I'm not mistaken, were CFOs or are CFOs. And I think about less than 5 were working in audit at the time. So audit partners, directors, or associate directors, or whatever it is. And I think what was interesting about that is we all have this perception when you become a CA, you become an audit partner eventually, or you become a CFO. Those are the two routes that people tell us we should follow. Whereas the SAICA competition proved less than half of the finalists were actually CFOs or audit directors or audit partners.
That's quite interesting. I didn't even think about it from that point, but that does. Things are definitely changing from a career aspirational point of view. Let's switch a little bit to, and I see on your LinkedIn profile that you're also a non-executive director on an organization or two. On LinkedIn, you mentioned this chartered director qualification. I haven't actually heard about that one before, so maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's a fairly newish designation, if I can call it that. It hasn't been around for many years. So we've got the Institute of Directors of South Africa, the IODSA, that oversees everything director related. I mean, they've got some amazing training courses. There's also memberships that we part of with them, and they've got two qualifications. One is the Certified Director qualification, and the second one is the Chartered Director qualification. Now, with the Certified Director, you don't need any experience. You just need certain qualifications, and you can get the certification once you go through let's say a small training program and you write an exam. The Chartered Director, I would say, is the heavyweight one, where you need a number of years of experience. You need proof that you're on a set number of boards and you actually are doing certain things on those boards from a governance perspective, etc., etc. I mean, I've spoken to some people who even have gone through that process, and they actually look at what you've done on that board and for that board quite specifically before they get you through that process. So again, you have to write an exam, you have to go for an interview with a panel of judges before you can get that CDSA qualification. So similar how when you have the CASA, a number of opportunities open up for you. So for example, many companies will only appoint a CFO if you are CA, FEM as an example. And similarly, some companies, I wouldn't say require, but it adds more weight if you have the CDSA to become a non-exec. Similar how an MBA would be to your advantage in certain roles. Chartered Director qualification also can add a lot of weight to your role as a non-exec. If that's obviously that's the career progression you want to follow.
What's your longer term plan with this non-executive director opportunity?
Yeah, so if you ask me the question today, I'll give you a certain answer, and my answer may change in a year's time or 5 years' time. But as it stands today, so I'm 35 years old. I know for a fact I wouldn't want to work in a corporate environment till the time I'm 60. So I wouldn't want to be a CFO or CEO till the day I retire. I'd like to have what they call a portfolio career, where I probably could have a few non-exec positions to earn fees, maybe small one or two non-profit companies where you don't earn fees, and then some consulting work on the side perhaps, or whatever the case may be. So that's what I'd like to do at the moment, more for the flexibility and dipping into many different segments at the same time rather than focused on one company. So that's something I'd like to do. I'm being quite deliberate in what I do right now to get there. For example, the training courses with the Institute of Directors and getting onto smaller boards for now. But like I said, if you ask me a question in 5 years' time, the answer may change again.
Yeah, you are going for your passions, and passions change. I agree.
Exactly.
I mean, you mentioned something just to track back in terms of the top 3,500. Only a few are CFOs. And I mean, you basically became a CFO at 33, 34. That's a very senior position in an organization that you are leading at a very, very young age. I mean, you're having to guide people through COVID, you're having to guide people through work from home. What do you, for those who are considering applying for the next, they might be 33, 34 applying for that CFO position now. It's not the same as being a financial manager. There's a big mind shift that you need to make. What advice do you have for them?
Sure, that's the toughest question you've asked so far. Yeah, so when I joined FEM as a CFO, I was 32. At Lion of Africa, when I was appointed as acting CFO, I was 31. So I guess being the acting CFO helped me a bit because I was a CFO, but I wasn't. One foot in, one foot out, if I can call it that. So I had a lot of support from my predecessor at the time. I think the mindset changes completely where you're thinking more strategy and big picture. So as much as I need to know what's happening in the numbers and I need to be able to understand the management accounts and the budget and all of those things, it's more bigger picture. What are we going to do next? How are we going to grow the business? It's more about presenting the numbers and getting the numbers right. So for me, a big part of my job is going to the board and presenting the results. presenting the results to staff rather than getting the numbers in top shape, which is the financial manager's responsibility. So I guess that mindset changes, bigger picture, quite a lot. The responsibility changes a lot as well. I mean, if someone in finance has to make a mistake, we'll fix it and we'll move on. If someone in finance makes a mistake, I still have to resolve it, and it's my responsibility at some point. So responsibility is a lot more. Anybody makes a mistake, it's still my fault to a large extent.
So that mindset can be difficult, especially at a young age. I know taking a step up to leadership, it takes a while. I know I struggle with a little bit as well. So
yeah, and again, the imposter syndrome kicks in because you're sitting on a board as an executive where a lot of the non-execs are in their 50s and 60s. I mean, that's just the nature of the industry. And you're interacting with non-execs who've been around before we were even born. I mean, they were working in the industry before we were born. So you need to get over that quite quickly to have those debates and discussions with them, because if you can't get around it, it's quite difficult to have those discussions there.
I can imagine. This is one question I like to ask most of my guests. What is one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
The one piece of advice I'll give my younger self. Everything happens for a reason. And I'll tell you why. When I was in university, I repeated third year. And at that point in time, you hate your life. I mean, you want to just move on and pass university and earn a salary and start working. And then what was worse is I did honors twice. So first time around, I got a sub for accounting. I wrote the sub and I failed it. So I had to repeat the whole year again. And I don't know if you remember, when you fail one subject, you still repeat all. So you're writing subjects that you pass. And I thought to myself, oh, I could have been working, could have been earning a salary, could have been starting my career like 2 years earlier if I hadn't failed those 2 years. But I think for me, it's everything happens for a reason. I don't think I would have been mature enough to start working at that point in time. Also, I think certain opportunities came to me at the right time. If I had finished university in 4 years and not 6 years, I would have been 2 years ahead in my group of article clerks. I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity at Line of Africa and wouldn't have become the acting CFO, which means I wouldn't have become the CFO at FEM. Now, obviously, other opportunities would have come to me, but I think that I'm probably at the right place where I'm supposed to be right now. And certain pieces of bad luck, perhaps, was maybe good luck.
No, that's good advice. Nothing is the end of the world. There's always some positivity to take out all of your setbacks. I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's move on to some of the questions from the audience. We've got a question from Tivasha, who says, how do you adjust from auditing those larger listed firms to now working for a smaller firm? What are the challenges you faced and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, so I think for me, the bit of luck again. I was the audit manager on Lion of Africa, and then I became the financial reporting manager. So I kind of knew the beast that I was going to work for, if I can call it that. It's just a mindset that when you're auditing, you're working with materiality. If the difference is above materiality, you figure it out. If it's below, you leave it. Whereas the challenge is when you're working in industry, whether you're working for a big firm or a small firm, every cent counts. I mean, as much as we've got a very big expense budget, I still look at the nitty-gritty numbers. Can we cut a couple of thousand in here, a couple of $100 here? Because what you realize quite quickly is when you add those rands and cents together at the end of the year, actually it pays for something big at the end of the year. So it's, I guess, just putting yourself into the company's shoes. And one of my non-execs actually gave me very good advice when I joined the FEM. He said the way to treat our balance sheet is to treat the money like it's your own money. So treat that investment portfolio like it's your own. Now, it's quite daunting. I mean, we've got an 8 billion portfolio that we oversee. But as soon as you tell yourself, this is my money, or I'm treating it like it's my money, every 0.1% return is going to make a difference. So every little bit you're cutting on the asset manager fees is going to make a difference. Every little bit you save on negotiating with a service provider for a discount, whether it's 1% or 0.1%, makes a difference. So I guess you need to treat it like it's your own company. And I guess when you're working at an organization and you're there every single day, you actually treat it like a company automatically. You don't have to be taught that because you become quite attached to that company. You become quite loyal as well. So I would say it's a challenge if you have to think about it from the outside. But once you get in, I mean, you as CAs, we adapt quite quickly as well. You adapt to your environment.
100%. I think that's a good idea, a good answer. We've got a question from Patience, who says she's just taken up a position at a startup and excited about the opportunity, but scared about the role as it's broad and she's coming from a reporting background. What advice would you have for her, and what have been your biggest challenges as a CFO?
Yes, I think if we can break the question into two parts. So firstly, the advice on that on the new startup. The cool thing about startups is if they have to grow like they're supposed to, there's so many different opportunities that you can get your hands dirty with. And I think if you're in a startup, you're part of that core team initially, where you need to learn everything about the business quite quickly. You can't just focus on reporting. So it's important to have discussions with everyone in the small organization that you may be working with. So understand everyone's role, everyone's job, how their work influences yours, how yours influences theirs. So that when the company does grow, it's easy to move across in different sectors. Because I guess as startups grow, more executive roles open up. And that's where, as an executive, you need to have a very, like I said earlier, high level, broad view strategy overview of the company. So that's probably the one thing, is just make sure you're interacting with everyone and learning what everyone does. Because the more you know about other people's jobs, the more you can also see if you want to do that job, or if it's something not for you. I mean, just as an example, when we sit in exco meetings, even though I'm not an HR expert or an IT expert, I need to understand how those aspects of the business work, because at some point in the day, it's going to influence my numbers also. So I guess just to learn as much as you can and to ask as many questions as you can. And I think one thing articles has taught us is, once you ask someone about their job, it doesn't matter how busy they are, they'll always tell you the long story about it and tell you as much as they want, because they're passionate about it. And you're smiling always, because I think you've gone through that as well, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Then maybe the second part, what's your biggest challenges as a CFO? I think responsible for many different parts of the business. And what I mean by that is, I've got a small finance team. I've got, let's say, 6 people in the finance team. Some report to me directly, some report to me indirectly. But I also had to get my head around the fact that I'm responsible for the internal auditors, the external auditors, the investment consultants. And I mean, I can use both hands and list 10 key service providers that I'm responsible for. So you're responsible for everyone. So you kind of become like a conductor or a project manager on steroids, because everyone's work is dependent on everyone else. I mean, if internal audit is late with their work, external audit can't rely on their work. If the actuaries don't do their work on time, our numbers don't get completed and we can't get the audit signed off. If the investment consultants don't get their stuff in order at a certain point in time, it again delays the reporting and affects somebody else's role. So I think for me, the biggest challenge was learning to deal with all of these different stakeholders, which I've only mentioned the external stakeholders. Then you still have your exco team who you need to report to, your board, your shareholders, any regulator that you may be involved with. So it's dealing with all of those stakeholders at once. I mean, if you look at any CFO's diary on a normal day, I mean, there's no one topic I focus on. You're like a jack of all trades and a master of, I would say, nothing, but you've got good support structures in place with all these stakeholders to help you get through it.
And I just want to add some to Patience on your first question. We interviewed a chartered accountant, I think towards the end of last year, where he mentioned that he also joined a startup in a financial manager role. And what happened is he joined the CEO on a few sales visits, found out he had a knack for sales, ended up in sales, and ended up as a shareholder and the head of sales. So I'm not necessarily saying that you should go into sales, but don't be afraid to try other things in the business, because you've got that opportunity in the startup. You've got more opportunity than most. Then we've got a question from Anthony, who says, you looked through your profile and saw that you've got a lot of experience in a short period of time. Considering that you've handled a lot of senior roles at your age, what advice do you have for someone in his early 30s who's still in a semi-senior role without much core experience?
Yeah, I think if I can answer this question indirectly, and then I'll answer it directly again. When I was sitting at my first board meeting for the legal-wise entities, where I'm a non-executive director, you sit there and you think to yourself, wow, I've got a lot to learn in this company in a short space of time. And as you're sitting and listening to those conversations, I realized very quickly, and I compared notes with other colleagues who've gone through the same experience, where you realize very quickly, you know a lot of things about a lot of things, even although you didn't know about it before. So it's in your head because you've been listening to conversations and you've been doing the work. So I guess the key thing is you've actually got a lot of the experience. It's something you just need to think about and reflect on, and think about all the things you've done in the last year or the last 4 or 5 years, because you would have all that experience already. It's just something that you need to untap in yourself. And once you do that self-reflection, you'll figure out that the experience already is there. I guess maybe to answer it more directly, if you're still in a semi-senior level without much core experience, you need to ask yourself, what experience do you want? Is there a gap in your experience that you still need to get? And similar to the previous question, you just need to start asking people how they do things. Because what I noticed is you've got your role profile and your job responsibilities. But if you've got spare time and you go to someone and ask them if they need help, by all means, they'll give you as much work as you need, because everyone needs help with their work. And that's how you start getting the experience. So you don't need your boss to give you the work. You don't need the deadlines to tell you what work to do. You need to also just kind of take things for yourself. And that's how you learn.
And you don't need to understand that other experience as much as that other person. You just need to have a working understanding of it so that you're more savvy.
And it's funny. I mean, as you sit in those discussions for longer, you actually gain that experience quite quickly. So the first time you'll be clueless when they're speaking about a certain topic. 5 meetings later, you actually can have a decent conversation with someone on it.
100%. We've got a question from Tumelo who says, how do you handle non-performers within your team? A tricky question, so we can move on to another one.
Yeah, look, so I'm lucky. I've got really high performers in my team, so I haven't had to deal with that challenge right now. But I guess to be fair, every company has processes in place. You've got your performance management processes in place. You've got a human resource department that can help you get through it. Sometimes if poor performers are there, you need to performance manage them, and either they upskill themselves and pick up the pace, or there's other consequences to that. I mean, it sounds harsh, but at the end of the day, you're running a business. You're not running a welfare organization.
True. And last one that we're just going to slip in. Mohammed Irfan says that how do you navigate the corporate world in a pathway to those director positions? You mentioned the IOD, but a detailed path you recommend. Just so if I remember, you mentioned there's 2 options. A certified director is a more difficult one, but it gives you more opportunities. I don't know if you want to touch on that.
Yeah, so and I could be confusing the two, but the certified director is where you don't need the experience. You just need to go for you need to attend the course and write the exam and go through that process. Where the chartered director is, you need the experience and you need to go for the interview and all of that. But I think maybe if I'm understanding the question more differently, I guess to get onto boards is difficult to start with. Many boards appoint board members who they know or who have the experience, right? It's that catch-22 where you need experience to get a job, but you need the job to get the experience. What I've learned, because I spent a lot of time trying to get into this, it's not the easiest way, but one of the better ways to get onto a board is to apply to nonprofits. Nonprofits don't pay, so you work pro bono, but you're using as it's school fees for yourself. So get onto a nonprofit board, you earn your stripes, and that's how you start with that network of people. Because if someone had to do an analysis of the top 40 JSE companies and look at all of the board members, you'll see similar people across all. And what you'll notice, many of those board members on those big companies are also board members on nonprofits, because a lot of people do those things for free because they want to give back. So once you can start networking with those board members, you got your way in. And rather get onto a small, let's say an easy board where there's not too much stress, not too much politics, you're not in the news, so you can learn, and then decide if it's for you. Because I must say, as much as that's my career goal, it's a tough role to be in. I mean, as a non-exec, you're non-exec 24 hours a day. The company's name is on the newspaper tomorrow. You're going to have to work really hard for the next couple of months.
The level of risk is a lot higher.
Yeah. It's the biggest risk you face as a non-exec is your risk by association.
Reputation.
Exactly.
Any last few words from you, or anything we didn't discuss that you'd like the audience to know?
No, actually, I think I'm covered, Uwais. I had a few things jotted down here, but you've covered everything quite nicely.
Okay, no, that means I did my job, which is good.
You'll get paid for today.
I reminded everyone that the show has been live on YouTube and will be available on the podcast by tomorrow. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast and you feel that it's added value to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click on that notification bell to get automatically notified when the next episode comes out. Yusuf, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks again for having me.
Thanks everyone for joining us for another episode of 2 Ways to Skin a Cat. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.